So there's this video that's been circulating online about some American who allegedly went to Ukraine, and it turns out that they don't stand a chance in hell against the Russians, these volunteers, because as you know, Zelensky was proudly proclaiming that Ukraine has amassed about 16,000 foreign volunteers to come fight in Ukraine. And this video made the rounds. Let me play it to you, and then we'll discuss. This was posted again by Alex Rubenstein. He says, American volunteer in Ukraine describes how foreigners who flocked over to the country to fight Russia are being used as cannon fodder and are threatened by Ukrainian forces with murder if they refuse to deploy on suicide missions. Let's take a look.
So for any of you who are wondering what is going on, all right, we were part of the Georgian National Legion, the 102nd Ukrainian Territorial Defense, okay? Our base got fucked up. The base right next to us got fucked up. Americans, British, tons of British dead. All right, they're not saying nothing. They're counting our dead as their dead. They're trying to send us to Kiev with no fucking weapons, no kit, no fucking plates. The people who are lucky enough to get weapons are only getting magazines with like 10 fucking rounds, okay? When they wanted to send us to Kiev, we said no. Our whole group, a bunch of Americans, Canadians, British. So they told us we had to get the fuck out or they were going to shoot us in the back, all right? So me, this British guy, and another American, we fucking hid in the back of an ambulance to get out. We got to the border, and it was a whole nother mess. When you get to the border, anyone who has kit, anyone who has any military shit, they're fucking pulling you out of the line and they're sending you back to the front. We got dropped off about 5 clicks from the fucking, from the border, and we walked. And we get to the border, and this humanitarian group with a bunch of ex-SF veterans from England pull us to the side and say, you need to get, like, pulled us out and fucking, like, hit us. And they were like, you need to dump all your kit. They're pulling people out, cutting up passports, sending them back. So we dumped our shit. We got, like, in all of our fucking, we got in, like, Red Cross vests, and they had, like, fucking humanitarian passes to get us through the Ukrainian border. People need to stop coming here. It's a trap, and they're not letting you fucking leave. The best way to leave is, like, in a Vic or a car or something. People who get on by vehicle have a better chance of hiding their fucking kit in the back, doing whatever the fuck they can, but do not try to leave Ukraine on foot if you're a volunteer. It's a mess, and it's a trap, and I have multiple people who can confirm this story for me.
Wow. Well, that sure doesn't sound like the cakewalk they made it out to be. I'm sorry, man. Like, you went to a war zone. What did you expect? This is not Call of Duty. My goodness. I take no pleasure in laughing in Schadenfreude. It's nothing to do with that. I'm just stunned. Like, what do you think they were gonna do? Of course it's a setup. Of course it's a setup. Of course you're a cannon fodder. They wouldn't be asking you to come in the first place if they didn't need cannon fodder. My goodness. My goodness. That is terrible. That is terrible. And the thing is, there are a lot of people saying this video is not true. So take it with a pinch of salt. If it's not true, this guy must be a very good actor. If it's not true, I want to show you something over here, just to give you both sides of the story, right? So we can be objective. So this is posted on Twitter from Cassie Dillon, and she says that the video statement just provided to me by an American working with the Georgian Legion in Ukraine. So that's the Legion that this guy was mentioning. He says the recent viral video about the American volunteers getting their passports cut up, they mean this video, right, is false. They say it's false, and that they were kicked out for failing the vetting process. 2 parts. So let's take a look at this video, right, shall we?
Hello, Harrison Josephowitz here, Georgian Legion here. What we can say is, whatever may or may not be circling right now from Henry Locke, it is completely false. No threat ever was made by the Georgian Legions as us, as a humanitarian organization working directly with the Georgian Legion, was ever threatened. No Georgian Legion ever threatened us with a rifle or anything of that nature. The leader of the Georgian Legion Mamuka. I had a conversation with him. I expressed my concerns for my humanitarian organization, that the military base that we were using, that they offered to us, was not the best place to have a humanitarian non-combat element. Now, yes, there is a part of my organization that we can get into contact with direct action groups if that's what they want to do. So with that being said, we came to the agreement that it was best for both of us for us to move off the Georgian Legion military base. With that being said, we still have a very, very professional relationship with the Georgian Legion. We have plenty of shipments of everything that they've ever needed coming in. I can't give specifics for OPSEC, but yes, we do have, we're still giving them loads and loads of gear, armor, medical supplies, everything. The only slightly bit of truth to it was a Georgian Legion contract of 3 months, and that was it. It's no big deal, but you know, at the end of the day, it really makes things look bad here, because we have a vetting process, and himself, Henry Locke, and another individual, they did not pass our vetting process, and this is in direct retaliation to them being rejected through our vetting process. And that is exactly why we have a vetting process, to stop this or those kind of mindset people from getting here, from helping us out.
Yeah, all right, man. I'm gonna be straight up with you. I don't believe a word you just said. I don't believe a word that this second guy just said. I think, again, my hunch. This is just my hunch. The first guy was telling the truth. If that guy turns out to be a liar, what a good actor. Give him an Oscar. I'm going to tell you something very simply. What the first guy was describing is exactly what you would get when you go and you jump into a situation like that.
Hello, Harrison, just suffered.
That is war. When you are going to join as a foreign mercenary, you're going to get treated like shit. You think that they're going to kit you out the same way they kit the National Guard in Ukraine? You're high. You are high. You're not the priority. You're cannon fodder. That's exactly why they're sending you on the suicide mission, because they need you to go do it for them. Of course, they're not going to give you any kit. You're just going to end up getting killed. You don't know the terrain. You don't speak the language. You have no fucking clue what you're doing. You're going to get killed, and they're going to waste all that gear on you. I mean, look how this guy got spooked. He's not fit to fight a war. Again, that's not a good thing. No one should be, forced to fight a war or be in such a place anyway. But my point is that it's a very, very tough and awful job. And especially just look at the La Légion Étrangère, the French Foreign Legion. That's notorious for treating the people who join like shit. Notorious. Now, I want to show you something else over here, because this seems to further corroborate the story that the first guy was telling the truth. So this is from the Columbus Dispatch. Shall we take a look? Now, the headline reads, Central Ohio man among Americans volunteering to join Ukraine's International Legion. I love the editor's note. Take a look. They say this story has been revised to reflect that Henry Hooft previously used the name Henry Locke and has been associated with the far-right group known as the Boogaloo Boys in the past. Not exactly familiar with what that is, but I'm not surprised that someone who's in the far right is going off to join, to fight Russians along with groups like the Azov Battalion. Big surprise, right? Wow. So when Henry Hooft found out on February 26th that the Ukrainian government had formed a volunteer military unit for foreign fighters to join the war against Russia, the former infantryman in the U.S. Army applied right away. Hooft, a 28-year-old Frazeysburg resident, is among the 16,000 foreigners who, according to Ukrainian President Zelensky, have signed up for the newly established International Legion of Territorial Defense of Ukraine. Despite safety risks and legal uncertainties, more than 3,000 U.S. citizens have reportedly applied, with hundreds already arriving in Ukraine. Submitting a passport copy and proof of military experience is all it takes for American citizens to join the newly established regiment. Hooft turned in his materials at the Embassy of Ukraine in Washington, D.C., and booked a flight to Poland the same day. Hooft, who said he is half Ukrainian on his father's side, has identified himself as a member of the Boogaloo Boys, which has been characterized as a far-right extremist group. Operating under the alias Henry Locke, the man was among a team of Ohio Boogaloo members who were at a Black Lives Matter protest carrying AK-47s, AR-15s, and extra magazines last year. Again, I'm struggling to understand why you would show up to a protest against racism with a machine gun. I'm sorry, maybe it's because I'm a European, I don't get it. That's just, I don't know what why you would do that. He said that he distanced himself from the far-right group after it got all crazy. However, among the 7 people with whom he's traveling to Ukraine is Mike Dunn, the former leader of the Last Sons of Liberty, a faction of the Boogaloo Boys. Dunn could not be reached for comment. The group believes it is doing the right thing to take part in the war in Ukraine, even as the US government is discouraging Americans from going over. Oh, well, I can tell you one thing. The British government is encouraging people to go over. I played you the clip of Liz Truss, who's the British Foreign Secretary, and she sat there very smugly in the BBC studios, I believe it was, and she very clearly said that the UK government, the British government, encourages people to go fight in Ukraine. Yeah. American volunteers like Hooft are entering a war zone amid dubious legal grounds and discouragement from their own government. While several European nations have encouraged volunteers to sign up for the Legion, the US government has been reluctant to give its approval. Ukrainians have shown their courage, and they are calling on every resource and lever they have to defend themselves. We applaud their bravery, a spokesperson for the U.S. Department of State said in an email. However, our travel advisory remains. U.S. citizens should not travel to Ukraine, and those in Ukraine should depart immediately if it is safe to do so using commercial or other privately available options for ground transportation. Making the matter even worse, even more complicated, are the legal ambiguities that come with working for a foreign armed force. So it is not a crime under US law for an individual to go abroad for the purpose of enlisting in a foreign army. At the same time, a violation of the law may occur if someone has been recruited or hired in the US, according to the State Department website. On March 2nd, Hooft got a call from an FBI agent advising him against traveling to Ukraine. Quote, he told me that I in no way have the support of the US government when I'm over there, and if I get in any trouble, I need to just call the embassy. I get it. They don't want to be implicated if Russia harms any of us. They don't want to escalate to the conflict by saying that they're sending American soldiers over. Meanwhile, Russian officials have said that all foreign mercenaries will not be afforded the rights given to lawful combatants according to international humanitarian law, and would face criminal charges or worse if captured in Ukraine. Two things. Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister, has clearly said that if British soldiers go to fight in Ukraine, they will be court-martialed, which is, very obvious. It's like you're defecting. You're going, AWOL. You're betraying your service to your country. So, I mean, yeah, of course. So even though the British are encouraging people to go there, if you're a soldier, you can't do that. You'll be court-martialed. I don't know. I'm assuming if you're in active duty or in any way in National Guard, that you would also be court-martialed. I can't imagine that any country would allow that. But in this capacity, the guy is former military. That's what they're saying. So perhaps again, that's a different case. But when they say here that that Russia says that foreign mercenaries will not be afforded the rights under international, yeah, I mean, obviously, you are not a civilian. You're not an armed. You're not enemy soldier, uniformed soldier. You're a mercenary. I really don't think the Geneva Convention is going to help you, Betty. I still don't think it's okay to abuse prisoners of war. I don't. Even if they're mercenaries, I don't think you should execute them or torture them, obviously, or mistreat them. But I'm saying under international law, I'm pretty sure the Geneva Convention does not make exceptions for mercenaries. Correct me if I'm wrong. At best, they can expect to be prosecuted as criminals, the Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov told Russia's state-owned news agency. We are urging all foreign citizens who may have plans to go and fight for Kiev's nationalist regime to think a dozen times before getting on the way. I think that this is terrible, because the NATO is basically fighting Russia down to the last Ukrainian. And it really shows you again that they've always been using the Ukrainians as pawns. They don't care about them. They don't care about them one bit. They're just, throwing some weapons in their face, say, go fight, and, here, have some foreign mercenaries, whatever. Dude, this guy, I'm telling you, that is what happens when you come as a mercenary. That is what is going to happen. You are going to get treated like shit. You are not going to be kitted out or treated as an equal to the people in the National Guard, even though they're neo-Nazis. You're going to be sent on these suicide missions because that's what you're there for. And these guys who thought that it's going to be some walk in the park, it's some Call of Duty game. I mean, you're in for a surprise. You're in for a big surprise. And I'm not laughing at anyone. I don't think this is funny. I think it's actually quite tragic. But the fact that they're coming out to discredit this, because a lot of people want to discredit this video over here. And again, please show me, a substantive evidence that it's wrong. I'm this in the article, I think the guy's telling the truth. The other video where this one where they're basically saying that he's a liar, I don't know. I think that's the kind of thing you would do when you want mercenaries to keep coming to Ukraine, and you're trying to do damage control because one of these guys blew the whistle or blew the, let's say, the lid off, and is telling people what the reality is. Because they make it seem like the Russians are stupid, like, oh, the Russians are bogged down, they can't advance, come as a foreign mercenary, you're doing the world a service, you're saving democracy, all this propaganda bullshit, and then when you get there, this is what happens. War is awful. War is terrible. And, the people who've been strutting around with their machine guns, intimidating, anti-racist protesters, who've been intimidating Iraqis, intimidating Afghans, shooting at them, slaughtering them, you're in for a big fucking surprise with the Russians. This is a conventional army. It's not guerrilla warfare. And already the US and UK got their fucking asses, they wiped the floor with them, the Taliban. They got their asses handed to them in Iraq, in Afghanistan. They could not win. That's not their terrain. And you think that the Russians, which have more nukes than anyone, have the best surface-to-air missiles, best rockets, one of the best armies in the world, you think that, you're nuts. Even if they did kit you out properly, let's imagine that they were treating these mercenaries in the Georgian Legion with a shred of decency, you'd still be cannon fodder. You're minced meat. What do you think? What did you expect? This is what arrogance does. What's interesting is they've been claiming, take a look at this, speaking of foreign fighters, they've been claiming that Hezbollah is actually sending people to Ukraine, right? So look at this, for example. The Ukrainian army announced that Hezbollah fighters have arrived to help the Russian occupation, right? So according to the Washington Post, the Ukrainian foreign minister at a news conference said that nearly 20,000 volunteers from 52 different countries have joined Ukraine's defense forces, right? So that's what we were looking at before, that Zelensky at first said that it was 16,000. Now it's grown to 20,000. And you've seen all of these articles everywhere saying that Hezbollah is going and joining the Russian side, right? So Kiev had earlier claimed Moscow recruited about 1,000 fighters from Syria and Hezbollah to fight Ukraine. And this is obviously categorically false. It's completely wrong. First of all, they said that Russia was recruiting Syrian mercenaries, or, mercenaries from the Middle East. Russia doesn't party with mercenaries. Russia doesn't use proxies and mercenaries the way the West does with Al-Qaeda and neo-Nazis and Contras. Russia, it did not encourage any volunteers. It said that if people want to volunteer, they can come and help, but they're not going to be paid. So by definition, they're not mercenaries. That's number one, the first difference. Russia's not paying anyone to come fight for them. The second thing, afterwards they claim that Hezbollah is going there too. That's also false. Here's from Reuters. Lebanon's Hezbollah chief, so that's Hassan Nasrallah, Sayed Hassan Nasrallah, denies sending fighters to support Russia in Ukraine. Nasrallah on Friday denied reports about sending fighters and experts to fight alongside Russia in Ukraine. This was reported by Al Mayadeen. Quote, no one from Hezbollah, neither a fighter nor an expert, went to this arena or any of the arenas of this war. And again, I find it absolutely ridiculous that they think Hezbollah there. I don't know. It's like any kind of connection they can, exploit to try and attack the axis of resistance, they do it. Why are they saying these things? Because in Syria, Hezbollah came to help Syria, Iran came to help Syria, and Russia came to help Syria. So given that precedent, they're saying, well, oh, look, you're going to have Syrians in Ukraine helping the Russians, you're going to have Hezbollah in Ukraine helping the Russians, and I bet you next they're going to say the Iranians are going to help the Russians. You want to bet? You'll hear them say that. And I think it's another stupid attempt to try and paint, because, in Europe and the West, Hezbollah is viewed as a terrorist group. Even though we all know it's a group that was created to resist the Israeli invasion of Lebanon. It's a resistance group. It's, under international law, when someone invades your country, like Israel did and occupied South Lebanon for decades, you have the right to take up arms. Everywhere. In Lebanon, in Ukraine, that's your right under international law. But they paint Hezbollah as a terrorist organization. And so the idea here is to say, look, Putin is allying himself with Assad, and now Hezbollah is coming in, and they're trying to make it look like some alliance. Again, like axis of evil. It's the same thing. It's just propaganda. It's rubbish. I can tell you one thing. If Hezbollah was sending people to Ukraine, they would say it proudly. They don't operate the way the CIA operates. The CIA does shit covertly. And again, to compare them to the CIA is an insult, really. But my point is, Russia, Iran, Syria, Hezbollah, they don't do things in secret. When they do something, they say it. They're not scared of it or people finding out. And I told you, if it's true that the Russians are using, or they have volunteers coming from the Middle East, they will say it. And I was right. Because the idea that we're mercenaries is wrong. That's a lie, and it's still a lie. The volunteers is correct. And Russia announced that. Putin, I played you the speech, the video where he was speaking to his defense secretary, right? So they say these things when they do them. They don't do them in secret. If it's true, Nasrallah or Hezbollah will announce that. So again, speaking of foreign fighters, I thought it's important to put that into context. And I wanted to show you something else over here. This is from the Telegraph, okay? And the headline reads, "They wanted us for cannon fodder, say British medical volunteers tricked into fighting for Ukraine." So the military base that Karl Walsh and Ollie Funnell were destined for was later bombed by Russia, killing 35 people. British medical volunteers have claimed the Ukrainian army duped them into crossing the border before trying to conscript them as cannon fodder for the Battle of Kiev. Walsh and Funnell left the UK with the hope of putting their expertise to use treating casualties in the war zone, but were instead told they would be deployed to defend Ukraine's besieged capital. Walsh, who's 50, is a former combat medical technician from the Rhondda Valley in Wales, and met Mr. Funnell, a paramedic turned teacher from Eastbourne, East Sussex, heading in the same direction at Krakow Airport on March 11th. Speaking on Wednesday on the Polish side of the border with Ukraine, the new friends told the Telegraph they could hardly believe their ordeal had only lasted 5 days. Both men contacted the Ukrainian embassy in the UK to offer their help after seeing the appeal by Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, for volunteers to join his country's resistance against the Russian invaders, dubbed the International Legion. Throughout all their subsequent discussions with Ukrainian officials, the men claimed assurances were given that there would be no expectation for them to fight, only to act as medics. This all changed when they crossed the border on Saturday and found themselves being shuttled to the International Center for Peacekeeping and Security, a military base used by Western volunteers near the city of Lviv. Walsh, who served on military tours in Bosnia, Kosovo, and Iraq during a 17-year career, said to join the International Legion, the Ukrainians wanted to take our passports off, sign a year contract, give us training for 2 days, or 48 hours, and then within another 48 hours, we would be fighting in Kiev. By this point, Walsh and Funnell were traveling with a bigger group of volunteers, including several ex-military officers and a significant number of men with no combat experience. It's a death wish. Mr. Walsh, who left his job as a taxi driver to travel to Ukraine, continued, Quote, these boys, some of them have no military experience. They were being told they would have 48 hours of training and then they're straight on the front line. It's a death wish. It wasn't on any of the emails we received that we would have to sign up for a year and they would take your passport off you. These people have gone out and been killed will still have family thinking they're safe over here because we didn't fill out any next of kin forms. They didn't even have weapons in camp to train with. Mr. Funnell was one of the men without a military background, having worked as a paramedic until 2014 when he became a teacher in Eastbourne. He had left with the blessing of his employers at the Ratton School and even set up a fundraising page to help pay for what he assumed would be a humanitarian trip. The teacher said Kiev is surrounded at the moment. They were sending us there as cannon fodder. Fortunately for the two British volunteers, one of their companions, who was formerly a senior officer in the French Foreign Legion, intervened and told the group, 95% of you will be killed within days of arriving in Kiev. We're getting back on the bus. Just hours after the men had made it back across the Polish border, the base where they were supposed to have been undergoing training was hit by 30 cruise missiles fired by Russia, killing 35 people. You want to join as a mercenary? That's what Russia's going to do. The Russians are not stupid. They know exactly who is in that base. They know that foreign mercenaries are there, and that's Russia's way of saying fuck off. This is very dangerous. Quellen Roberts, who's a former army captain, whose firm is providing humanitarian aid and logistics support on the Polish-Ukrainian border, said he had been deeply troubled by the number of British volunteers heading into Ukraine. He told The Telegraph, I would urge British veterans and non-veterans, if they're thinking of going over to Ukraine, to firstly really consider it, because you will compromise yourselves, the Ukrainians, and the British government. If you get captured by the Russians, that is a significant propaganda victory for the Kremlin. I mean, it's not really a propaganda victory. You're actually there. They didn't like make up a cardboard cutout of you to parade you. You're giving it to them. If you do go, please make sure you turn off all your electronic devices before crossing the border. He said, don't do it. You will just end up being conscripted. They will put you on the front line knowing you don't have any military experience. It is a suicide mission. That's exactly what I was saying. When you come there, they know you're a greenhorn. They're gonna use you as the cannon fodder because you're not valuable. You don't have any experience. You're at best you're gonna get the others killed because you don't know what you're doing. So they're gonna send you first. That's the reality. That's a reality. And you know why he's saying this with the phone numbers? Why you should turn your phone off? Let me show you this. Let me show you something else from the Telegraph. Are you ready for this? British volunteer fighters may have triggered deadly strike on Ukrainian base after their phones were detected. So the Telegraph has learned that 12 to 14 numbers starting with the +44 international code, so that's the UK, were visible to surveillance equipment before the missile strike. British volunteer fighters are feared to have triggered a deadly airstrike on a Ukrainian military base after their phones were detected in the area. My goodness. Again, they think the Russians are idiots. The Russians know exactly what's going on. They can see that there's a bunch of foreign phone numbers being there. They know they're mercenaries. You know, what else could it be? You got a bunch of British people who just, appeared out of thin air in a Ukrainian military base. They know it's a foreign mercenary base, and that's what they've done. They've hit it with missiles and killed everyone. This is a very dangerous game. And that goes for all foreigners. They can see all these numbers. My goodness. That's it. You want to go fight in Ukraine against the Russians? Go and be cannon fodder. That's what's awaiting you. That's the reality. This is a conventional army. Very advanced cyber capabilities, surveillance capabilities, missile technology. One of the best air forces. They have state-of-the-art fighter jets. You don't want to mess with them, man. I'm telling you that I think it's extremely reckless that the British government is encouraging people to go there so they can just die and be used and abused. Even the medics. You see how they're using the medics? I mean, that's just stupid. Honestly, if you're a Ukrainian in this camp where the mercenaries are coming, why the fuck would you put the medics in the front line like cannon fodder? You need medics. They actually have experience on top of it. They're not just like pretending to be medic. That is so stupid. Who did that? What an absolute moron. Medics are valuable. You need them. And obviously you have medics on the front line, but to send them off like put them in the same group as the cannon fodder, I mean, you're an idiot. Why would you do that? My goodness. That's just stupid. But what's really stupid is going off as a foreign fighter. You know, when you have people from Syria going there, the people from Syria and other places in the Middle East who are volunteering, first of all, Russia, they're not being paid. They have military experience. They've been fighting Al-Qaeda. They've been fighting, you know, all the other occupiers. And most importantly, they're going because they feel that they owe the Russians a debt of gratitude for saving Syria. That's completely different. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it. I'm just telling you the rationale behind what's happening. These guys, they have no clue what's going on. And the difference is that if you're with the Russians are vastly superior in military capabilities to the other side. So already that gives you an advantage. But especially if you have combat experience, you've actually worked with the Russians before. That, again, this changes the whole balance. I think this guy was telling the truth. Absolutely. And he's not the only one, because you have people from, you know, the British medics that we're just looking at. This is what's happening for sure. And this video over here, this pathetic attempt to do damage control. I mean, you just basically just confirmed that everything they're saying is true, because that was really a unconvincing little rant you did there. My goodness.